Back in 2012, I played a Super Mario 64 ROM hack called Super Mario 74. This was a mod that added a bunch of new worlds to Super Mario 64, and I was absolutely blown away by just the fact that it existed. To me, that was it. There was no way it was gonna get better than this. I couldn't possibly imagine where Super Mario 64 ROM hacks would be in just a few short years. With things like Last Impact adding in all kinds of custom coding and objects, it was unimaginable to me that anything like this could ever exist. Super Mario 64 ROM hacks have come an incredibly long way since then, and it's getting to the point where they're basically making straight up quality DLCs, if not flat out sequels to the game. Modifying the game has never been more accessible too, with entire dedicated communities and resources everywhere, not to mention the decompilation and the PC ports. It has become a massive, rapidly evolving beast. The downside of this though is that anybody making a ROM hack now has to work 10 times harder to make one that really stands out. And that happens with a lot of games. You know, Doom is a great example. Once in a while you get something crazy like myhouse.wad, but a lot of the time it's stuff like Doom Guy Goes to McDonald's that can be beaten in 3 seconds because it's literally just Doom Guy walking into McDonald's and then a screen telling you the tragedy of how the McFlurry machine is broken. I believe ROM hackers do great work and that they should make whatever they want to make, but as a longtime player, someone who has played over 3 billion different ROM hacks and fan games at this point, I often find myself waiting for that next big thing, and everything around it has a tendency to get lost in the crowd. When the Patchmaker's workshop was announced at last year's F3 presentation, I bookmarked it in my head as one of many potential next big things. The trailer for this one stood out dramatically, with its creepy imagery showing off some new abilities. It was clear that this was one of those prestige ROM hacks. So the second it came out, I started playing it. Then Death Stranding 2 came out and I got distracted, but that's another video for another day.
Goddamn.
The too long shut up fool version of this video is basically that Patchmaker's Workshop is a fun and artistically brazen Super Mario 64 mod that belongs in any conversation concerning the most impressive ROM hacks up to this point. And speaking of F3, you should check out this year's F3, which dropped last Saturday, because there's a lot of great stuff in there as well. The premise is that Mario was attacked by a mysterious and maniacal man called the Patchmaker. He turned Mario and his friends into dolls using something called the Threads of Life, so this girl, Sonia, shows up with Mario's M-Patch, which contains his Thread of Life, to revive him. They embark on a quest to put a stop to the Patchmaker's plans and revive Peach and Bowser. Throughout the game, we learn more about the nature of the world, the Patchmaker, and Sonia. This is one of the things I love the most about this game, the story. Between its mysterious and even ominous nature combined with funky and original characters that seem tonally adjacent to Mario despite not being originally Mario characters, it almost feels like it could have come out of the classic Paper Mario titles. It's a story that takes place in its own Mushroom Kingdom adjacent world with its own rules and motifs. I like this world with these flying manta fish butterfly things with bodies of water. Yeah, literally, that you have to jump and swim through. They carry you across as you're suspended within them. That's not something you see in your usual Mario 64 mod. Every level has its own largely self-contained story to tell, like the gold-soaked sky. This was one of my favorites. If you fall into the abyss, you find yourself in a vast empty field where these ghosts follow you. Spirits of the dead, talking your ear off about the tale of a battle long ago, where they met their doom at the hands of the goddess of an empty heaven, whose name I cannot pronounce. You might say that's a little heavy for a Mario game, but I say different. Not only should every Mario game have you fight a goddess of an empty heaven, but there should also be extreme gore and discomforting political commentary. And Mario should say fuck. The mansion level is also great. Every game should have a mansion level. Woe Zone from Super Paper Mario makes a comeback, and the Geometry Dash dimension, which is just really cool. There is this one room in the mansion with a wooden beam hidden out of reach. I thought if I used the chain chomp to jump up to it, I'd find a secret collectible or level or something, but I actually found a diary with hidden lore details, which was somehow even better. There are a lot of these hidden diary entries left behind by the Patchmaker, and they make the story and the world that much better as a result. Story is one of those things that Mario ROM hacks don't often prioritize, so when you're hiding diaries and lore entries all over your Mario 64 levels, that's very impressive. It's been a long time since I've actually seen Coraline, but it reminded me a lot of that movie. It really is tonally as though Tim Burton made a Mario 64 ROM hack. The game is full of new mechanics, introducing these new patches for Mario's hat in every level. Adding new mechanics to Mario 64 is tricky because the core mechanics that were already there were very much what made the game so great in the first place. The act of jumping, wall jumping, backflipping, long jumping, dick flipping, this is all a lot of fun. So when you add in new mechanics, you have to make sure these things add to that rock solid foundation instead of diluting and drawing too much attention away from it. Most of the new mechanics in this game are great. I love this move where this ghostly chain chomp can eat an enemy, which gives you an extra boost when you jump, or this one that turns certain objects into other objects. I remember using this on a whim in a different level and I got a whole bunch of blue coins out of it. Easiest 100 coin star I ever got. The Halo. Shut up. The Halo, which you can swing around, it can pick up fire and light torches, and it actually leaves a trail of flames as you walk around with it. That's just fucking cool. The Swim Dash move from Banjo-Tooie, the Ice Power from Mario Galaxy, the Grapple Hook from Batman's Arkham Backstreet Boys, and just when you think you've seen it all, they throw in a portal generator for good measure. There's even a puzzle that involves placing a portal in 2 separate levels and warping between them. That is absolutely off the wall. Compared to something like Mario in the Multiverse, where you could combine 13 different mechanics into a crazy jumping maneuver to absolutely mog any and all platforming challenges, the new moves in this game are a little bit more on the incidental side, and are typically most useful in the level they are found in, which isn't a bad thing, although the game doesn't prevent you from using them elsewhere. If you think you can make something work, you probably can, and I think this will be a very fun game for speedrunners. About 70% of the way through the game, I discovered that each level has 2 secret stars hidden away that you can't always get on your first playthrough when you don't have the right moves. As I was going back through the previous levels in search of these stars, I came across this puzzle where the expectation was that I use the Swim Dash move to jump between different pools of water, separated by bottomless pits. I could tell just by looking at it that it was going to be very frustrating to do it the right way, so I got a good idea. I equipped this other patch that essentially acts like the hover boots from Zelda and cleared the gap that way. I felt like a genius. Visually, the game makes really cool use of lighting effects in a way that the original doesn't. Just a simple thing like making orange or purple light reflecting off of Mario depending on the level goes a very long way to making the world feel more immersive. The game has more than its share of new assets between character models, animations, and textures, and it's all made that much better by the music. This is one of the best soundtracks I have ever heard in a Mario 64 mod, and from what I understand, the compositions are entirely original. It's not just catchy tunes either, it's remarkably atmospheric and brings these levels to life in a way that cannot be taken for granted. Whenever you enter the stage, you get this little diorama of the level with these little pins telling you roughly where to look for the star. This is a really cool spin on the usual star select screen. It's helpful too. If you get lost trying to figure out where you're supposed to be going, you can restart and just look at the vague location on the diorama. The most impressive thing though is all the new cutscenes and dialogue. There is some remarkable imagery in these sequences and even some very disturbing and evocative moments too. This was done with a lot of care, a lot of attention to detail, with a very unique and discreet vision driving everything. The game definitely has issues here and there. It's a very experimental game in a lot of ways, and experimenting with game mechanics is usually noble, even if the experiment doesn't always work out. There's this whirlwind move you get in the Twilight Forest that can be hard to control. You have to build up momentum in a small space and precisely time your next jump as close to the edge as possible, and that can be a real bastard sometimes. There are infrequent incidents where it expects a level of precision from the player that it can't quite facilitate consistently. The difficulty is largely reasonable throughout, but typically the intermittent spikes are the result of camera issues and some slightly wonky level geometry that feels like it forgot what game it was in, but that's all water under the bridge in the grand scheme of things. Every now and again, I worry that Mario 64 ROM hacks will lose their ability to surprise me, and I'm always happy when things like the Patchmaker's Workshop come out. They're very reassuring that there is still so much they can do with Mario 64. This is a ROM hack that is mechanically inventive, artistically brazen, and all around just very unique and distinct. I cannot stress this enough, this is one of the best ROM hacks I've played in some time, with the exception of the weird bugs and camera issues. If you haven't played this one yet, do yourself a favor and get on it. And in case you were wondering, it does work on real hardware, so that's a nice bonus. And with that, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in 3 years when I finally finish Death Stranding 2.